Right. Proverb 16 is a very straightforward little thing just to think about. Mitchy says that every time you roll a 1, just think about whether you should play a checker down from your 6 point to your 5 point. He gives this as an example. In the opening, um, we rolled a 2-1, and we're going first with this 2-1. And there's two ways you can play a 2-1 in the opening. You can bring one down to the 13 point and you can split at the back, or you can bring one down to the 13 point and you can slot from the 6 to the 5. And Mitchy's point is just saying that's a very good attacking structure. We could be hit, I think, about 15 rolls out of 36, we could be hit back. But if we're not, we're slightly more likely not to be hit back. We would make a great chance of making our 5 point. And that's why there's not much in it. The safer play, splitting at the back, 2 millipoints is for nothing. Basically, Mitchy says it's a toss up between the two. And you'll find that some players much prefer playing the 6 to the 5 at the start. I heard one or two experts talking about it, saying they feel it leads to much better games for PR. If you play the 6 to 5, it's your PR in the overall game is going to be better because yes, you've taken a 2 millipoint hit here, but it's an easier game to play after that, whether you're hit or whether you're not hit. And I suppose the point of bringing from the 6 to the 5, there's two of Mitchy's early proverbs come into play here. First of all, the most important point is the 5 point. We know that, so by slotting, we're giving ourselves a better chance of making it. And two, we've that mountain of checkers on the 6 point, so by bringing one off it, it's doing a good thing as well. It's unstacking. So that's the situation with a 2 and a 1, but finishing up like that is kind of is nice and straightforward. If we're not hit, we're really good in terms of attacking options. But with a 4 and a 1, again, traditionally you'd bring one down to the 4 and split at the back. That's the correct move. But it's correct by a bigger margin. But Gary Koscielny on Sunny Florida Backgammon Club was saying he played Mitchy on a number of occasions, and on 3 of those occasions, Mitchy himself rolled a 4 and a 1, and on all 3 occasions, Mitchy played the 4 and the 1 this way, so down with the 4 and then slot with the 1. It's possible that Mitchy thought he was a stronger player and wanted a slightly more complicated game, but again, I think it's a PR thing. If you play it this way, you're going to have the game will define itself much quicker, much more easily, and possibly your PR is improved. If you look at it there, it is a 22 millipoint blunder, 22 millipoint error to slot, but several experts reckon that's not a bad thing to do to take the hit there because it leads to an easier game later on. With a 5-1, this surprised me. Again, it's the usual thing. The correct move is come down with the 5 and split at the back, but instead of splitting at the back, we can play one down. Now, I thought that coming with the 2 and the 1 and the 4 and the 1, we were bringing another builder down to the 13 point with better diversity of numbers to be able to cover that if we're not hit. But in fact, that's slightly less by 1 millipoint. That's safer there because with the 4 and a 1, we were leaving our black had 2 shots at us, but with the 5 and the 1, it was just a little bit safer. Now, that was a position at a match score of 0-0 in a match to 11. But I've changed the score here. If you look on the left-hand side there, the XG is giving the match score there. We're playing a match to 11 points and we're 10-0 down. And we want to make something happen. And when we do that, absolutely, it's now better to slot because slotting will lead to more contact. More contact leads to more gammons. We're 10-0 down. We need to get a few gammons to get ourselves back in any sort of chance of winning. So for that reason, slotting suddenly, as the score goes higher against us, it becomes more important to slot. But I played around with it a bit and I thought, well, look, how much of a lead does your opponent have to have before slotting becomes a better play? And now look at the score. I found that at 2-0 down. So, that could be just a double game and we've lost a double game. We're 2-0 down in a match to 11. It's still very early days. But even at 2-0 down by a millipoint, like it's only a millipoint, the slotting becomes the better play. Mitchy then looks at situations, and Gary Koscielny in Sunny Florida Backgammon Club look at situations like this where we haven't gone first this time. Our opponent went first and rolled a 5 and a 1. They brought their 5 down from the midpoint, and they split at the back. And the question now becomes: should we should we slot and come down with the two and then slot there? But look in the bottom right, black now has a much greater chance. I said I think it's 15 opportunities they had to hit us if we go first. Now they've, by my maths, 24 opportunities at least, 24 different rolls out of 36. There are 2/3 chance of hitting us. So it can't be right. And in fact, surprised me that the correct move is actually to just advance one of our back checkers by 3. So the correct move is to come forward 3 like that. And I was surprised. I thought the correct move would be to bring one down to the midpoint, unstack the midpoint, and split at the back. But I suppose if you look at that situation, if you do that, the minute you bring one down to the midpoint, our opponent now has at least 6. Well, let me think: a 6-4, a 5-4, a 6-3. If our black rolls any of those numbers, and there's 6 chances out of 36, they're going to hit that checker we've brought down to the midpoint. So it's safer just to kind of, rather than doing this move here, it's just to go back to it and advance in the back, nothing to hit us with. However, let's give a slightly different position here. This time, black, instead of opening with a 5-1, opened with a 4-1. They brought one down to the midpoint up in the top left quadrant there, and they split at the back. And we've rolled a 2-1 this time. Now there's a trade-off. It's kind of risk and reward. We should come down and we should split at the back, because yes, black has 6 shots of hitting us, but by splitting at the back, we have a great opportunity of hitting that black blot up in the top left there. So by the reason I think for splitting at the back this time and bringing one down is it just gives us a much better chance of hitting black's blot. So yes, we're leaving ourselves more open to be hit bottom left, but we're also much better chance of hitting black on the top left. So it's a trade-off. Now let's look at this position here. This time black opened with a 3-1, and they've made their 5 point. They've made their golden point. What should we do? Well, the correct answer is one down and split rather than slot. The slotting play, look, it's way down there, 69 millipoint, big error there at the bottom. And the reason of this, that's the correct move, is to split at the back. And the reason is, it goes back to something we've done in previous videos, splitting rules. Black is attacking us with only 8 checkers, so they're weak at the top. They've stripped their 8 points, so they're weak at the top, and they're starting to build a prime. For that reason, yes, it might be nice to slot, but there's a much more constructive thing to do there. We need to start splitting against the prime that's left there. And that moved on to this position that Mitchie gives in the book as well, where black opened with a 5 and a 4, and we rolled our 2 and a 1. And now let's look at the situation here. How would you describe black's structure at the top? Well, they've got big candlesticks, stacked points on there. They're very much a stacked 8 point and a stacked 6 point. They've 10 in the zone, which is strong. They have clearly a blitzing structure. And if you remember, the rules from the splitting rules is never split into a blitz. So we need to resist our rear checkers in the top right there. We need to resist all temptation because we're facing a blitz structure. And here becomes an absolute blunder to split at the back. And the slotting play by a significant way is the best thing to do. So it's that thing about where black is attacking us with 10 checkers this time, and they're attacking us with a blitzing structure, so we never split. And I think this is a good example of all Mitchie's proverbs kind of interrelate. And yes, we're looking at slot with a 1, but we're not slotting with a 1 because of Proverb 16. We're slotting with a 1 because we're facing a blitzing structure, and we don't want to move the 1 from the back. So we come down with the from the midpoint with the 2. You could advance it 13 to 10 and just play 3 from the 13 point there, but the 10 point isn't the best builder to have. And again, it leads us a little bit into the line of fire with checkers from the black's rear checkers going to be attacking that point. So for the sake of a little extra risk, Dirk Freeman always talks about, if we haven't got good things going for us, we need to try and make things happen. Black is establishing a good blitz up the top there, so we need to make things happen, and we can do that by taking a chance that black won't hit our single blot on our 5 point, and that we'll be able to make a priming structure of our own in the face of black's blitz. And if we go from that position to a situation where I've just given black an advanced anchor here, same position as was in the last one, but black is an advanced anchor, then it becomes more a case of, is important to split. Yes, it's the trade-off that we've, all these videos, the whole of Mitchie's Opening Concepts book, there are trade-offs, and one of the big trade-offs is the last video did was counter an advanced anchor with an advanced anchor, and versus never split against the blitz. Because black has made that advanced anchor, we have to kind of take a chance and split against the blitz. But I gave a slightly different position. Here's a position where, this is a mid-game position, and Mitchie doesn't cover this, and Gary Kishelny doesn't cover this, but that idea of when you roll a 1, always think about slotting applies not just in the early game, but also a little bit in the mid-game. So we're a little bit further advanced. Black has got a lot of checkers. They have 11 checkers in their zone now, so they have a big, high stacks blitzing structure. We don't want to split the back. So the question is, what would you do with a 1 here? There's very few good options. So you could move the 1 like that. It's you're splitting into a blitzing structure. You don't want to be doing that. You could come out, use all the 2 and the 1 to kind of advance it a little bit further forward, but it hasn't achieved anything more. You're still split into a blitzing structure. It's kind of a little bit suicidal, really. There, kind of, you might say, well, pushing forward up against that black blitzing structure is defiant of their blitzing structure. But it's like, someone's there with a machine gun. You don't go stand straight in front of them and say, "Go on, hit me. I defy you." So that's not out of use. We could come down from the midpoint, but that gives black a direct shot at hitting us. And again, we'd have a third checker behind their zone, and it gives them not just a 6, but a 4, a double 3s or a 1 and a 5 would also, so it gives us 14 shots of hitting us. And doesn't really achieve very much. The thing here is it doesn't really achieve very much. You could even split from the 8-point to 7-point. But again, it doesn't. It strips our 8-point. It gives black, 13 shots at any 3 or a 1 and a 2 will hit us. So it gives black 13 shots of hit us. And it's not putting a blot where we particularly want a blot. So let's put that back there. The only decent use of the 1 here is to come down and just... that's the point we want to make. It gives the least shots, so only 11 out of 36 will hit us, and it's a good builder. So if black doesn't roll a 1, we might be strong, and the best way we can support it is bringing 1 down from the midfield. And I just thought this was a good example of that idea, that Mitchie's proverb about every time you roll a 1, think about slotting. It's worth just like all of Mitchie's proverbs. A lot of the time they won't apply, and it's bloody difficult to know which ones to use and which ones not to. But it's not just an early game proverb. Sometimes it can be very helpful in the mid game, and in this situation, absolute blunder to do anything else. Is we have to move the 1 that way. So that's it for this proverb. Very simple. If you roll a 1 at any stage, just see about how stacked are you on the 6-point. How valuable is the 5-point to you? Is the best use of the 1 to move from 6 to 5? I would say use this with caution. It's quite straightforward in the early game, but as the game goes on, like all of Mitchie's proverbs, you can sometimes overuse them. Worth just be careful that you don't do so in this case. But a very straightforward thing to think about. Every time you roll a 1, should you play 6 to 5?
5. Now, finally, a little addendum. I recorded the rest of this video previously, but Mitchie's book... it's slightly the structure in the later stages are a bit of a jumble, and as I was going through a later proverb and something entirely different, I found just 3 notes about slotting with the 2-1, the 4-1, and the 5-1, and they just seem more relevant here and more apposite here. So I'm just going to tell you what he says there. He says, when we slot with the 2-1, as it's shown here, I just thought the maths would no harm to have in here. 15 numbers will hit us back. So 15 out of 36 rolls for black will hit one of our checkers. But if we're not hit, we're going to cover our blot in the 5-point with 31 out of 36 numbers, which is massive. So if we don't get hit here, we're very likely to make our 5-point. And out of all the rolls, he just makes an interesting point. 2-1. Like if we roll a 2-1, we've got 3 pips. 2 plus 1 is 3. It's the worst possible roll you can get in terms of racing. So we're not leading the race anyway. So if we are hit, look, the damage is less significant because, you know, in terms of racing impact, we were behind in the race anyway. So that's what Mitchy says about 2-1 in a later chapter. About 4-1, he just notes again the facts. With 4-1, we'll be hit with 19 possible rolls out of 36. So more than half of of Black's rolls, they will hit us. But if we're not hit, we're still able to cover our blot in the 5 point with 30 numbers. So that's a very good figure. And he also just makes the point, if you look at our builder in the bottom left there on the 9 point, this is quite a nice point. So if we didn't play the 6 down to 5, we'd be quite pleased to make a point on our 9 point anyway, cover that 9 point. So he just notes that the possibility of making the 9 point is probably reward enough. So we don't need, slotting with the 1, it's not bad. And as we've said earlier in the video, slotting with 1 is always worth considering. But, we'd be quite happy playing 13 to 9 in the next go and making our 9 point as well. Just worth thinking about. And finally, with the 15 point, with the 5-1 roll, we get hit back with 15 numbers. Basically, Black can roll, 5, you can roll 4, you can roll double 2s, double 1s, a 3 and a 1. They're the possible rolls that will hit us. But if we're not hit, we'll cover our blot in our 5 points with 24 numbers. Now remember, with the other numbers, we were at 31 and 30. So I think still 24 is not bad. He also makes an interesting point that, with the others, when we slot, we're leaving 2 blots. When we slot with the 5-1, we're only leaving 1 blot. So that's a slight argument in its favour. But overall, as we know, slotting with the 5-1 is slightly inferior to the 2-1. So there you go. Just a little bit of an extra that comes in. I don't know why Mitchy, as I said, the structure of the book towards the end is a bit of a jumble. And I don't know why he didn't put this in earlier, but I'm just including it here now.